The Florida Gators 2025 recruiting class is mostly done. Not done yet, but mostly done. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, that looks like it's frozen a little bit, so that's fun. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Early signing days wrapped up. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter wherever you listen to podcasts, or find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with New York Giants on SI. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube every day. And the Florida Gators class is wrapped up for the most part for 2025. And it felt like an underwhelming day. And I don't want to seem like underwhelming is me trying to kill this class or me trying to hurt anything. There's a few thoughts I have here. And we'll go through it. Whatever you have to say in the chat, say in the chat. We'll get to it. We'll probably do this about the length of a full show, because I don't think tomorrow we're going to talk about this class. I think tomorrow we're going to talk about some of the portal stuff. So say whatever you have to say about the class here, and we'll talk about it at some point. But just looking at this class, we're keeping the shades on. It's still a good day. Looking at this class, I think that the approach is usually that you want to build a team, right? That's generally the approach of you want to have a quarterback, you want to have your offensive line, you want to have a couple running backs, at least one, maybe two. You want to have 3 receivers, 2 tight ends. You want to add a lot, right? And Florida had some things happen that just weren't ideal, right? And that being, of course, the main one is Dallas Wilson was generally thought to be a Florida Gator, as I think it was On3 and 24/7, both reported also. And we talked about this with the Insiders, which, by the way, if you want to be a part of the Insider program, the link's in the description below. It's first 2 weeks free, $5 a month after that. You're going to get recruiting, coaching stuff, additional content as well. But we talked about it there where for Dallas Wilson, he told Florida he was going to commit to Florida. He told Miami he was going to commit to Florida. He told Oregon to have a replacement receiver ready. And then he went up and committed to Oregon when Oregon got kind of the last call right before he went up, which you could say there's a couple ways to think about that. One, because I see Larry, you said, where's all that buyout money you have supposedly had to pay recruits? With Dallas Wilson, it wasn't a matter of being outbid in the bidding war. It was a matter of, or I guess it was a matter of being outbid, but not in the sense that you accepted being outbid. It's that Oregon got to him last. And so if you're going to be mad about anything with Dallas Wilson and Oregon and Florida and how Florida handled it, I think the thing that you should be annoyed about is that Florida wasn't better prepared for that as a possibility. He's a 5-star football player. That's going to be a possibility. So I think that maybe that's what you should be concerned about more than just being outbid. It's that you weren't better prepared to deal with Florida sliding in late. And so there's that. With Solomon Thomas, I know that, because here's another thing too. Where the money thing is always going to be a concern. The money thing is always going to be something people talk about. And I get it. But when we talk about the money, it's also important to recognize that when it says, hey, Florida's not going to be outbid on recruits that they really want. Yes, but at a certain point, every school is going to say, I'm not going above this number for whatever reason, right? You could say, because Solomon Thomas is a guard. So you could say, I'm not going above this number for a guard. You could say, I'm not going above this number for this. I'm not going above this number for that. Look, I love Solomon Thomas. If I had the money that Florida reportedly has for it, I'd have given him the amount. I'd have won that battle. Okay, I'll say that. But in general, in football, guard is the least valuable position on offense outside of maybe tight end. In college football, running backs get paid. I want to make that clear. College football is not a running backs don't matter sport. There are teams that live and thrive through their running backs. So in college, it's not so much running backs don't matter. In the NFL, you do it because longevity is, of course, a thing. But in college, that's not so much an issue. So guard is maybe the least valuable position, if not tight end, which I do think it's tight end in just college football in general. And so a lot of times you're going to see teams that go, I'm not going to pay this amount of money for this. I'm not going to pay this amount of money for that. So I understand being frustrated with Florida not winning the bidding war for Solomon Thomas. However, I also think it's important because you also would feel like if you found, I don't know the amount that Solomon Thomas got, but hypothetically, actually, I'm not even going to put a fake number out there or a hypothetical number. I'm just going to say LSU paid XYZ for Solomon Thomas. If you read that number and you go, oh my God, that's insane. If Florida paid that number and you want to go, oh, they overpaid, you'd be mad about that, right? So I don't mind not getting into bidding wars. I don't believe in overpaying. I will say that as well. I don't believe in the whole, well, you overpaid. Like maybe there's a different value, yes. And again, Florida seems to be a school that's not going to get into bidding wars for guards. It's not the first time it's happened. So maybe they have that value. I don't believe in overpaying personally. I think that you could say you have a number, sure, and go with that. But as far as looking at LSU paid this kid this much money, they overpaid. No, they didn't. They paid the amount that they thought was fair. And so it's not overpaid because really you're worth what someone's willing to pay you, right? And so I think that that's the case with Solomon Thomas. I don't get too mad about something like that. Dallas Wilson, I understand. Solomon Thomas, I understand. I disagree, but I understand. Onis Konanbani, I think I pronounced his name right. We'll see what happens with him. Something tells me that we're not done with that one, and that how do I put this kindly, or how do I put this appropriately? He did not sign today. That doesn't mean that he's waiting until February. Okay, and so we'll see what happens there. With that one, who else was it today that people were talking about? Ryan Montgomery's another one. Who's just a weird. Ryan Montgomery, I think, was just trying to up the bag between Georgia, which maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But I will say that the reports that Florida was pursuing him and Florida was pursuing him heavily, say they're not accurate, or they're not highly accurate, okay? There's levels to things. Let's just say the reports of those are greatly exaggerated. So that's how we'll look at there. But so this class, like the day felt underwhelming, right? Because last night, a bunch of it became, oh, Florida's going to get Dallas Wilson, Ryan Montgomery, Solomon Thomas, Onis Konanbani. They're going to get all these kids. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And then really, they added Lagonza Hayward, and that was it. And so it feels like an underwhelming day, but it's really not. And I'm not, I think that I've established, I'm not a sunshine pumper here by any stretch. I'm just saying I don't think it's that underwhelming. I think it was uneventful, but I don't think it was underwhelming. Because especially when I look at the past Napier classes, signing day last year, I don't know, if you follow recruiting, which it's not for the faint of heart. Don't do it all the time. If you follow recruiting, last year's signing day was a nightmare. Last year's signing day sucked because last year signing day was brutal. Okay. Last year's signing day was, is someone going to sign DJ? Is someone going to flip DJ? Is someone going to flip LJ? Is someone going to flip this guy? Is someone going to flip that guy? It was a freaking mess. Okay. This year, Florida lost one kid on signing day. One. And it was a kid that they backed out of the running for. That's it. I get that it might have been uneventful. It might have felt lackluster. It might have felt like an underwhelming experience. But this was not a bad signing day. Uneventful, absolutely. I'm not gonna gaslight you into thinking that it was eventful. But it's good that it was uneventful. Okay, it's good that you didn't have constant news. It's good that I didn't go live 75 times to talk about kids that were leaving the class, because the only kid that left is Tayshawn Gelsey, and best of luck to him at Florida State. Best of luck as a tight end, and this is something we've talked about for a while now with Locked On Gators. Is that as a tight end, I think he's a very good take. But if he really wants to play wide receiver, he can go do that in the ACC, because he's not going to create separation at the SEC level. He's not. I like his film as a tight end. But as a receiver, I don't think he's that. What do we have? We have someone. I'm sorry, I'm going to lean in a little bit. It's hard to read the green font here. Actually, I can just zoom in. Love that. Neighbor is the type of guy. We have Landon Gosnell, by the way. Thank you so much for the super chat. Neighbor is the type of guy that's not going to pay crazy money. Oh, Napier is the type of guy that's not going to pay crazy money for unproven product. Neither Dallas or Thomas have even touched a collegiate field. Yes. Here's the thing. I think they would have gotten into the bidding war for Dallas. Okay. I also, chat, I see you guys. I will get to you. I'm not trying to ignore it. It's just I'm not trying to bounce all over the place. I'm trying to stick on specific topics. And so while we're on the topic of this, which we'll get to an ad break in a minute, but as far as Napier not overpaying, again, this staff has pretty consistently shown we're not going to pay guards a ton, right? I mean, it's one of the reasons that Richie Leonard left Florida last year and went to Florida State. And that wasn't a secret. That wasn't quiet. I'm not spoiling anything. It was money and Florida simply said, we're not investing in guards like that. Like we're not paying for guards like that. It's as simple as that. As far as Dallas, again, I think that because the story of Dallas is that he got a call like right as he was, right before he spoke about it, right before he made his decision, and right before he committed. I think that if he had gotten that call and then called Florida back and said, hey, this is the new number, I think Florida might have gotten into the bidding war. But here's another thing also. I'm going to say this, and then we'll get to break again. Chat, we'll get to you. I promise you. We'll probably go over 30 minutes right now, so that's fine. We're at 13 right now. But I would say this as well for the offensive line stuff. I don't know what the thought process is with Tavares Dice, but Florida, Billy Napier's press conference that he did at like 4:00 ish, he said that he thinks Tavares Dice could play tackle. And the way that he said it, he was like, he could play inside. I think he could play tackle. He could do this. I'm interested to see where they slot Tavares Dice long-term. But I don't know, the way that he said it made me think that they're not confident he's going to be a tackle long-term. And so for that, I think, okay, then tackle needs to be even more of a priority in the portal if you think Tavares Dice might be a guard long-term. Because if Tavares Dice is a guard long-term, that means that in this class you took guard, and tackle in Dice, Pierre-Louis, and Jahari Medlock. And Jahari Medlock is a guy that I think is going to need at least a full year before he's really ready for a great athletic freak, but needs a while. So, and again, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, Landon, I know that Billy says I think a lot, but him talking about like, oh yeah, he could play inside. I think he could play tackle. That wording just seems weird to me. And I know Billy says I think, and Billy has his coachisms a lot that sometimes we maybe shouldn't look into too much. But just again, playing with this. Either way, I think you need to go tackle in the portal. I think you need one. But if they do think Dice is a guard, it especially makes sense why they wouldn't get into a big bidding war with Solomon Thomas if they think Dice is going to be a guard long-term and Daniel Pierre-Louis is going to be there, and you have Jason Zandamela from the 2024 class, and you have Rod Kearney and Bryce Lovett and Najee Harris. You're pretty stacked on the interior right now. And the report that I think it was On3 put out yesterday that they think Jake Slaughter is going to be back for 2025. We don't have that confirmed at all. And I honestly don't think Jake knows the answer to that. I'll be honest. To my knowledge, I don't think that they've had those NFL draft advisory boards have given the grades back to players yet to make that decision. And that's not a Florida thing. I think that's just in general. I don't think the NFL draft advisory board has given people those grades back yet. But I think that on the interior, you're pretty good, but you need to get tackle. And you need to start hitting tackles in high school as well and developing them. I know that offensive line might become a bit of a portal position. You just go get guys that are proven offensive linemen, bring them in. But I feel like it's a proven thing that chemistry matters a lot on the offensive line. And so teams that bring in offensive linemen can develop offensive linemen, and I think have multiple years of those offensive linemen together, I think are going to start really pushing forward offensively and take a couple steps there. So we're going to get to a break right now. Chat, I see we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of the chat and then get to you. And we'll work our way down. Like I said, we're probably going over 30 minutes today. That's fine. And then we'll wrap up. But we wanted to talk about this class, which, again, before we get to a break, this class is respectable. Yes. I don't think it's a great class for Florida. And while I think you could do this simultaneously. This is how I try to approach things. I think that you can say where Florida was a couple of weeks ago to where they are now is fantastic. I think that's great progress. However, I think it's also very important to remember Florida was in the spot they were a few weeks ago for a reason, right? Like Florida had the 51st ranked class for a reason. And Billy Napier has acknowledged, look, a lot of people were worried about job security. And then the first month of the season, we went out and played horrible. And that did not help people. That did not help instill any belief in us. So, we finished in second for Jaden Woods, Hilton Stubbs, Tavares Dice, Lagonza Hayward. We finished in second for a lot of these kids, but they were kind of like, hey, I need to see some proof of concept on the field. And we didn't give them that. And then once we got the Scott Strickland confirmation that job security is there, and once we started winning games, those all kind of work together. So yes, it's great to go from 51 to 10 or 51 to 11, depending on whatever site you're looking at. But I do think it's important to also acknowledge that Florida was in the spot they were in to begin with because of themselves. And I don't think 11 is a good spot to be in. I think it's just acceptable considering the circumstance, but it's not a good spot to be in. It's not a great class. You may be 11th in the country, and that's wonderful, but you're 7th in the SEC? Or are you 8th in the SEC now? You're 8th in the SEC. It's not ideal, right? You're out recruiting, half of the SEC, but ideally you want to be in that top 5 nationally, top 6 nationally. And you're not, and I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not. I know that there's, I don't have the comments pulled up right now, but I know that there's probably people upset about that. I'm not trying to bash people. I'm just saying that while progress is good and you rebounded well, it's important to remember why you were in that spot to begin with. Okay? Chad, I see you popping up. I see 8 comments that I haven't seen. I'm not reading them until after the break, which we'll get back to next, where we talk about the rest of this class and we get to the chat next on Locked On Gators. Do you hate the team that you drafted in season-long fantasy? I hate my team, okay? One specific league. I hate them. They all got hurt. It sucked. But if you want to stay in the action, we're introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent and You can play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats. Strategize with your partner to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the daily fantasy social movement at Better Together. Download Better Together now from the App Store. That's BETTOR Together from the App Store. Sign up using promo code Locked On for a free $10 entry into any NCAA football or NFL contest, and play with us in the Locked On CFB Saturday Games contest this Saturday. Remember the promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, or second listen, or third listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. Don't forget, tonight after the Florida Gators basketball game, we're going live again to talk about that game. Very much looking forward to it. Should be a good one. We got the SEC ACC Challenge, so looking forward to those big games. We're going to go to the beginning of the chat and work our way down, so apologies if something you said is outdated. We will try to skip the things we've already talked about. Jackson LaFleur said, tough misses at the end, but great class overall. Can't be unhappy today. Again, I'm not unhappy with the class. I don't think that this is good as a standard, and I'm not lowering my standards for anybody. So I don't think this is good as a standard. I do think it's fair to say that from where you were to where you've gone, that's good, and you've recovered well. But try not to forget why you were in the situation that you were in, and I think that's important. And so yeah, we've got that. I've never had this full screen before. I'm using two screens today. So we got that. Happy with the class. Just going 0 for 3 on the 5 stars really suck. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it was like, oh well, we got to get one of them, right? You got to get one. There's no way that there's all this hype and you don't get any of them, and that's exactly what happened. So that's not great, but again, it is what it is. Q said we have a top 10 class and we can get the extra needs from the portal. I'm not tripping. It's still Go Gators. It's always Go Gators. And yeah, that's the thing too. You're 11th in high school. You can still use the portal. Like I don't care if you're 11th in high school or the portal. If you can finish in the top 6, I'd say that's a good standard to be at. I think that's a fair standard. And I care about the overall rank. I don't care about just high school or just the portal. It's a combination. You're building a football team. You need to use both, the draft and free agency. Think of it that way. Your NFL team, you don't think, oh, just draft every player. That's not how it works, right? You've got to use free agency. You've got to use the draft. You've got to get into things. And so college football, you got to do the same thing. Florida, go after a tackle in the portal. Go after a receiver. Tamper. I don't care. Everyone's tampering. Go do it. Be aggressive, cheat. That's when you're at your best. So we'll say that. As far as also Onis Konanbani, who I mentioned before, I have a suspicion that if he does not commit this week, Florida's going to back off. I don't think that they want to wait till February. I think if he doesn't commit this week, they're just going to go, okay, we'll go to the portal and get ourselves a guy. He didn't commit today. He has until Friday. Early signing period. I know early signing day is today, and that's when everyone usually hits things, but it's the early signing period. And so you have until Friday. And I think that if he doesn't commit by Friday, Florida's just going to go to the portal and figure out corner there. I don't think that they're going to wait till February. Just doesn't sound like a great idea to me. And also the reason I'm saying that I think Florida's still pursuing him and could land him, because we had some of the coaches tweeting like London GIFs and Otis Konanbani, born in France, grew up in London, moved to the U.S. And so that's just how that's shaken out. I think it was a banger. Realistically, the only one we missed on was Solomon. So whatever, our DB grabs are lit. The DB class is freaking sick. The safeties are wild. Hilton Stubbs is an elite deep safety. Lagonza Hayward, headhunter. Can't wait for it. I think he's going to be really freaking good. I think that they nailed the DB class. Like, maybe not quantity, but quality is there. All three elite DBs. I'm happy with it. I'm not complaining. Solomon Thomas would have been huge. I feel like wide receivers are good and will be fine. Our coaches are great identifiers and developers of talent there. Overall, I'm very pleased with where we've ended up. Retaining Wilson was big. Yeah. Again, yes, I think that Florida did a really good job with a lot of these kids, and I'm assuming they're retaining Wilson, Trey Wilson. Only clarifying because we were talking about Dallas as well. So keeping Trey Wilson's huge. Hopefully you allow him to actually play wide receiver this year and not just gadget. That'd be nice. I'd like to see him actually run routes. I think he's got a lot of potential there. He moves really well. So I'd like to see him run routes. He's a smooth mover. Would be great to see. I still think Florida needs to go receiver in the portal. Yes, Vernell Brown can probably contribute from day one. I don't think Muiz Tunkara will contribute from day one. Nay Montgomery might be able to contribute from day one. I think he's got great ball skills and he's a great vertical threat. I'm not sure he's going to be able to create separation early on. I think he might need a little bit of work there. But again, I think he's a great player, and I do think he should be a blue chip receiver. I think it's ridiculous that he's a 3-star. That's just nuts. So we're there. Stephon Shivers, by the way, it's pronounced Shivers, not Shivers. Shivers, a lot of potential. I think he's going to be maybe a longer developer, but I mean, damn near 6'5", 365. He's a big dude, athletic guy. You cut on his film. Napier mentioned in the press conference, you cut on Shivers' film from 2023 in his first play. He's lined up at running back and he houses a 70-yard run. It's nuts. LSU threw a bag at Solomon Thomas. I don't care. Again, I've said, if it were up to me, like if you gave me the decision, I'd be like, okay, bring him in. I'd bring him in. I think Tavares Dice can play tackle. So I'd bring him in. I'd put Tavares Dice at tackle. I'd put Solomon Thomas at guard and I'd say, all right, mow people down. Just bully ball everybody in front of you. It's my approach, at least. Feels underwhelming because folks are riled up. Yep. You almost got me to Ron Burgundy there. You're lucky. I stopped myself. Stopped myself there. Josh Garner said a lot better than it was, straight up better than a month ago. Yep. Again, I will not fault progress. I just want to make it clear. This is not an acceptable standard to set. This is acceptable outcome because of how the class was, a month ago. This is not an acceptable standard to set. Don't lower your expectations. Remember that. Too many people get caught up in 5 stars. Just wait and see what Florida will show you. Yeah, sure. No problem with that. Where's all that buyout money you have supposedly had to pay recruits? They're still going to be conservative with their spending. I know we spoke about this earlier. That's why I'm just glossing over it. They're still going to be conservative with spending at some spots. Just because you have the money does not mean that you're going to spend it willy-nilly, especially if you've got the portal to go where those kids are probably going to cost more money in terms of a 1-year thing. I'd imagine those kids cost more money because you're getting a more proven product. I could look at, just because I'm not trying to pick on him at all. He's just the first recruit I saw, Nayshawn Montgomery. Like I can look at Nay Montgomery and be like, okay, yeah, I'll pay you, again, XYZ, just hypothetically, I don't know the numbers at all. I'll pay you $100,000 for the first year. Great, right? Like, sure, you might work out. And if you don't, that's a small portion of my cap. That's fine. But if I'm looking at a proven receiver, he's going to be more expensive because I know what I'm getting more. Like if I'm looking at an Elijah Badger, he's going to cost way more than any freshman, right? Unless it's Jeremiah Smith. Then Elijah Badger is going to cost way more because Elijah Badger's proven for multiple years. He's been really good in college football. He had crappy quarterback play, but he's been really good. So there's that. Oregon can have Dallas Wilson. I'd rather have Vernell. Yep, it's a mess until they actually figure out contracts and a cap system. I don't know about the cap system. I know that people talk about revenue sharing as, revenue sharing is going to level the playing field a lot. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to do as much as people think. Unless I'm misunderstanding this, which I don't think I am. I've spoken to NIL people about this, where schools are going to be capped at, I think the cap number is expected to be about $21.7 million for the year. I think that's the cap number that they're expected to be held to. And so schools are going to be allowed to spend that much. But NIL collectives, boosters, they're still going to be around. So I think that maybe you level the playing field a little bit. I think, like, some of the smaller schools can spend up a little bit more and maybe get themselves a couple guys here and there. I'd imagine a lot of teams are going to start trying to get a QB specifically and go, hey, we'll get ourselves the best QB we can, and whoever follows, follows. And maybe that's the approach. It's going to be real interesting, and also that's throughout all athletics, not just football. So it's going to be real interesting. But I don't know how much it really levels the playing field. So I don't think that's a cap. So I think you're right that there probably needs to be a cap, Joseph. I think you're right that there probably needs to be a cap system in some way. I don't think that the rev share is that people thought of. So there's that. Ryan Tooper, what's up, buddy? We had so much momentum, and then it came to a halt. I loved all the flips. I wish we closed on those. That's the thing, too. Like, momentum, sure, it might have felt like it stopped, but, like, even if Florida flipped more kids today, momentum was stopping today regardless. Like, there's nowhere else to go from there, right? You got to go to the portal. You got to wait till the portal opens. So even if Florida got more flips today, momentum was stopping today. So I think it feels a bit deflating, but, like, tomorrow you're going to be sitting there like, oh yeah, we got a top 10 class. You got a great class, but, like, we're all going to be sitting there like the Dave Chappelle, just like scratching the neck. Like, we're going to be waiting there. Like, y'all got any more of them flips? Like, we're going to be waiting there regardless. And that is what it is. So that's why I think I'm not too broken up about it. Rather have guys who want to be here. UF should have never been ranked 51st a few weeks ago. Glad you have finished 11th but 51st. Most of the season is bad look, and that's on Billy. Absolutely, Larry. Plus, we got some O-line recruits today. Joshua, them days are over. Are you going to Hard Rock next year? Shake, I honestly don't know. I think I'm not. Sorry. I try to go to home games when I travel because, it's a long trip. So I try to go to home games when I travel so I can be in Gainesville and in that environment because I love going to Gainesville. So I try to be in Gainesville. So I don't think I'm going to be at Hard Rock next year, but I'm not ruling anything out yet. Yes, we ran through that. In today's NIL era, it's a combination of players who want to play for the university and those who the bag matters. Here's the thing I will say also about a lot of the NIL stuff, because I feel like this is a really bad misconception about things. The way that things are, like, it's very rare that a kid just goes into his recruitment and he's like, hey, whoever gives me the biggest bag, speaking of, when I get my money, whenIgetMyMoney.com, if you want to get a shirt like this. It's not my company. Don't worry about that. I'm not plugging myself. I'm plugging pretty cool people. But it's not like people are like, oh, like, whoever gives me the most money, that's who I'm going to. It's not that. It's usually that these kids talk to a bunch of schools, figure out which coaches they're most comfortable with, which coaching staffs they're most comfortable with. And from those, they go, all right, I could see myself playing for Florida, LSU, Miami, Texas, Ohio State. From those, whoever gives me the most money, that's where I'm going. Like, I think that's a more reasonable way to think about it. Like, kids aren't being true mercenaries most of the time. They're kind of going, well, these are the staffs I trust. These are the people I'll listen to for money. I think that's way more likely. DJ Lagway definitely wanted to be a Gator. Yes. Easy to complain about not throwing millions of dollars at players when it's not your money. Yeah, sure. But I mean, also, I criticize the New York Giants. I don't handle their cap situation. Tell you what, I do a lot better than paying Daniel Jones $40-something million. But that's besides the point there. Napier, autocorrect is annoying. There we go. That's how long we've been talking. That's how long we are. Very true, Larry. Still getting paid and wanting to play at a school that can be true as well. So if they were telling the truth, we should be pouring a ton of money into the transfer portal, and there are some studs out there. They could do that. Again, here's the thing. Even if Florida has the money, they're going to look at people and say, I'm willing to give this guy $850,000. That's as high. Like I want to get him for $450,000. I'm just throwing complete hypotheticals out there. I want to get him for $450,000. I'm willing to go as high as $850,000. Like if you've got a hard cap that you're like, I'm not like this guy is not worth more than that, they will cut it off there. I understand saying, oh, Florida has this money for the portal. Florida has this money for this. Yes. That doesn't mean that they're going to spend it. They don't like, they feel like overpaying is a thing. Or they feel like, hey, this player's worth this much. That's what we're paying. And that's it. I don't have an issue with that approach, honestly. Like I would probably handle it differently. I'd probably be like, hey, well, when we'll pay more now. And when we win games, boosters will be more willing to spend. That'd be my approach, but I'm not Billy. Again, this like who was it that said that? Like Phoenix said, it's easy to complain about not throwing millions of dollars at players when it's not your money. Again, we see what happens when Ole Miss overpaid for a team and got them nowhere. Sure, put that buyout towards the hopeful big fish in the transfer portal. Yep, that's what I would do at this point. I'd say, hey, best receivers, best tackle, best defensive players, come to Gainesville. Billy said, I think, oh yeah, we talked about that one. Who's running back 2 next year? We'll see. You got Jaden Ball's back. You got Jacoby Jackson back. You got Trayon Webb back. You got Katie Daniels back. You brought 3 running backs in the high school class this year. We'll see. Cream of the crop rise to the top, right? Did DJ Pickett? DJ Pickett signed with LSU still, which again expected. I know that people in the subtext, the insider program, were asking about that. And I said from the moment people were like, oh, he's tweeting the chess pieces, does that mean anything? I said, I do not trust a single thing that family says. Don't. There's just some things that just reek of, oh, he's trolling. And that's what it was when he tweeted the chess pieces. I guess him and Thomas can both be Gator bait next year. I guess so. Whoever, I don't know who the him was that time, but sure, they could both be Gator bait. I don't care. Whoever it is. Again, whoever you're talking about. Billy has always been a day late and a dollar short the past 2 years in the portal. We'll see. I know that in his press conference today, he talked about being more aggressive in the portal, bringing in more visits. Now there's an unlimited amount that you're allowed to bring in. And now that early signing day is done, they can focus more on that because the portal hasn't even opened yet. He seemed like he really liked the changes to the college football schedule. So there's that. I call it a great class. So that's fine. Hey, I'm not bashing a single person for their opinion. I'm just saying for me, this isn't an acceptable standard. It's a respectable class. It's an acceptable class. It's not acceptable as a standard. And I think that's where I'm at. I was all in on Dallas. I'm hurt. Let me tell you, Sophia and Allie, whichever one of you it is here. Me too. I first heard, hey, Dallas might flip prior to the Ole Miss game. And it was like, hey, he might flip after the Ole Miss game. And I was away that weekend. So I pre-recorded a thing for if he flipped. And I was juiced for it. Like I was ready for Dallas to be a Gator. Unfortunate there. Still have holes to fill. Yep. Wrong QB. Let's talk. Don't know about that. I don't know what that's in reference to. Tackle, wide receiver in the portal. Yep. Bring D-line back. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, we don't know what grades a guy like Caleb Banks is going to get. We don't know what grade Tyreek Sapp's going to get. We don't know what grade. I mean, also on the offensive side of the ball, Austin Barber, Jake Slaughter, we don't know what grades they're going to get back from the NFL Draft Advisory Board. If you can get them back with that buyout money, like that's equal to making a run, honestly. If you go, hey, we're going to bring back Austin Barber instead of going to get or we're going to reallocate some of the money here for Barber to come back. That's great. Honestly, like that's cool with me. Not my money, but that's cool with me. He was supposed to be this elite recruiter. I hope Harris is looking at Perkins in the portal. Would love to see him in orange and blue. Harold Perkins? Is that the Perkins that you're talking about? I don't know why Will Harris would be looking at him. I think, yeah. Gators filled a lot of needs, and that's important, but most are not playing next year. The portal will be important. Billy needs to quit playing and get busy with those guys first. Yep, absolutely agree with you. Did Gelsey ever sign? Gelsey's set to sign at 6:30. He's going to sign with Florida State, or he's not signing with Florida. He wants to play receiver. So be it. Go ahead. If he wants to play receiver, he could do that in the ACC. He's not doing it in Gainesville. He's not doing it in the SEC level, and I very much respect the Florida Gators coaching staff for hammering that one home and pulling themselves out of this conversation. When he said, hey, I want to play receiver, they're like, okay, we're out then. I think he has value as a tight end. I don't think he has nearly the same value as a receiver. It's just not a thing that I think is interesting. How about we get Gators fans together and file a class action lawsuit against Thomas and that Oregon receiver for mental anguish caused by their not signing for Florida? I'm in, but that would make us a bit like Florida State, and I don't think we want to replicate anything they're doing. Last lawsuit they filed did not go well. If you re-rank class of 24 and 23 now, what would the rankings be? Maybe best to judge a year or two down the line. Napier's a great talent evaluator. Sure, but I mean, just taking a quick look at the 2023 class, your top-ranked commits, whenever that loads. Jakeem Jackson's in the portal, top-ranked commit. Kelby Collins, second-ranked kid, portal. Rod Kearney was your fifth, does not play. A few spots down, you've got Gavin Hill, D-line, moved to tight end. Will Norman, portal. Andy Jean, portal. Quincy Ivory, portal. They've really hit, but they've also had some guys not work out. Billy's the master at lowering expectations. Not for me, Rob. My expectations are the same. That's why my expectations are the same. We ain't changing here. Where we were 3 weeks ago, Florida fans should be thrilled with this class. No, they shouldn't. That I will vehemently disagree with you, because the reason that Florida was in the spot they were 3 weeks ago is because of the same guy that turned it around and got you to the 11th ranked class. Florida was not ranked 51st without reason, okay? Simple as that. Florida was not ranked 51st just because kids didn't feel like going, okay? Billy's job security was not in question just because people felt like putting his job in question. Things like that were not an issue, okay? Like they weren't an issue just because they were an issue. They were an issue because they were justified as issues. So I disagree that people should be thrilled with this. Like, yes, we will celebrate progress. You can celebrate progress. But let's not forget the only reason Florida jumped 40 spots in 3 weeks was because Florida was 51st. Same thing like when people talk about Florida State. Like, oh, Florida State really turned their class around. They were in the 50s and now they're 22. That's a great... No, it's not. It's not. Because the reason you were in the position to be in the 50s is because of you. It's the consequences of your own actions. You screwed up. You went 2-10. That's why your class fell apart, and that's why you had to bounce back. That for Florida State. Like yes, great progress, good job, way to recover, but like you're in the spot you're in because you put yourself in that position. So yes, good job, and it's like I said, it's respectable at this point. It's acceptable. Not as a standard, but as a one-off, it's acceptable. I saw someone ask where Florida's ranked right now. Let's see. I don't know if they've taken Gelsey out of the class yet. I doubt it, but Florida's ranked 11th, and he's not going to make a significant impact on the class either. But, did they? I think they took him out. They took him out on 3. Okay, so they took Tayshaun Gelsey out of the class and on 3, and Florida still finished ranked 11th. Did they take him out? They didn't take him out yet in 24/7, and Florida's ranked 11th. I doubt he's going to make much of an impact. He's a relatively low-ranked recruit. And they've got, I don't think Tayshaun Gelsey's making a 6-point swing here. So Florida's 11th on 24/7 and on 3, 11th. What's the estimate on what they've paid now? We don't know. We're never going to know that. I heard Solomon Thomas was getting $8 million. That's insane. I never trust those numbers. Okay. Let me say this about any numbers you hear NIL wise. There are almost always NDAs attached to these NIL numbers. When rev share becomes a thing and schools need to kind of release how much money they are paying for players, those are better estimates. But even then, you don't know what they're getting from elsewhere. So I never pay attention to the numbers of Michigan's paying $12 million for Bryce Underwood. They're paying this. Never, ever listen to those numbers. They are almost never accurate. Remember that. Unless someone directly involved in the negotiation and the signing of the contract tells you the numbers, don't believe them. And if a player tells you the numbers, be skeptical. Okay, players aren't always telling the truth just because they can tell the truth. Like you ever fill out a job application and like, what did you make at your last job? They're lying, like a liar. So don't buy that. Does anyone know where our class rank? We talked about that. Why is Rob Sale still here? That's crazy that you would ask that about yourself, Rob Sale. Nasty work. Have to remember there are a lot of guys on the team not getting a lot of money. If they give one guy $1 million and you're getting $50K playing the same position, that's going to cause problems. Not really, because I don't think you need to have that conversation with people. I don't think that has to be a conversation had. I think it can be, but I don't think it has to be a conversation had. And a lot of times, like I know there's some players who don't even know how much they are truly making. Their agents handle it. And it's like, hey, I want to make at least this much. Agent gets whatever they can, and the agent reallocates it to, financial advisor, whatever it may be. Things are way more complex than I think they need to be, but I don't have to deal with it, so I'm fine with it. 2025 is important. What's up, Will? I feel like we haven't seen you in a while, Will Bird. 2025 is important. Need to spend on upperclassmen, Badger, Pearsall type player who help immediately. Balance is critical. Pay for current high school and transfer players. Absolutely. Wish we can get in the top 10. Wish we would have gotten French in Dallas. We need to get us an ace recruiter. I think Florida will get themselves an ace recruiter at receiver. I hope they will. And with the portal, if Florida spends the way they should spend, Florida should finish top 10. If they do things the right way, they should finish top 10. Put it this way, if Alabama fans ranked 11th, they'd be having riots. Yeah, absolutely, Shake. Absolutely. Not something to just accept. Hate that. French said he was locked in at Texas. I don't know why people thought we had a shot at him. Because Florida did. I don't care what he says. I believe that Florida was in. I don't care what he says past after the fact. I don't care about that. I think they had a chance. We need Ron Zick to be our recruiter. People were panicking about wide receiver before we landed Badger last season, who was awesome. Lagway will attract top transfers. That's the hope, right? Like that's the hope. That a kid will go, hey, I want to play with DJ Lagway. We thought that was going to happen with Dallas Wilson, but obviously that didn't prove to be the case. But yeah, still, we'll see where it goes. But you should theoretically be able to attract a top receiver in the portal. Joshua Garner, I do believe that Billy needs another strong season before he'll be able to meet top 5 expectations of the fans. All I'm saying is that this team went 7-5, and earlier this morning had a realistic chance of finishing in the top 7 or 8. Sorry, this team in 7-5 in year 3, and earlier this morning had a realistic chance of finishing top 7 or 8. Logo sells. We've talked about this a lot. Florida's not a hard place to sell. It's in-state for a lot of the top talent in the country. Great spot location-wise. You're in the SEC. resources around. Like there's a lot to sell at Florida. It's not hard to sell it. Tim Tebow should be on staff to lift the Gators to number 1 in playoffs and recruiting. I don't think he would do that at all. I'll be honest with you. I love Tim. Tim's my GOAT. I don't think he'd do that at all. We're 11. If the Gators can't recruit better than Georgia, then the Gators will just have to coach better than them. That's it. If you can't recruit better than them, got to coach better than them. And then when you coach better than them, recruits will come to you. Simple as that. Thanks for explaining that about the way the money works. Yeah, no problem. I don't know what part about it you were saying thank you for, but you're welcome for anything. Brandon being negative, Billy got lagway. We should be a great team. Hey, whoa. I'm not being negative. I think the expectation for Florida in 2025 is playoffs. I'm not being negative. I think the expectation is playoffs. That's my expectation. Go out there, get players that get you to that expectation. That's where I stand. Coach Jaluk with 3 backs that automatically that at least one will be a beast. Honestly, I think Jabbar Jaluk has done a good enough job. I think Jabbar Jaluk's doing a good enough job where you could say at least 2 will be a beast. I know that he doesn't bring in the 5-star running backs. I don't give a damn. Every back he touches turns to gold. I don't care, man. Like, again, I've mentioned it before, but Jabbar Jaluk has all my respect in the world. I know that there's some people who want elite backs, elite this, elite that. Jabbar Jaluk brings in backs that get the job done and then some. And they do it with lower rankings, all that stuff. Like, at Louisiana, they had 3 NFL backs in one season. That's ridiculous. Elijah Mitchell, Raymond Calais, and Trey Ragas all went to the NFL. And they had him on the same team in the Sun Belt. That's wild. That's wild. Like Jabbar Jaluk, Gerald Chapman, they've earned it where I don't give a damn what they say, what they do, or what I think about the player. If you like them, bring them. I trust you. Go ahead. Do it. That's all you. You're untouchable to me. Simple as that. That's how I feel about it. If we did staff panic fire Billy $40 million for players for the next 3 years, I don't think they're going to fire him. I don't think that at all. I'm just saying that, yeah, money, matters. This is the first time since like 2019 where I look at the starters and there's not a single sitting duck out there. We've had once for you. Yeah. I look at this roster and I think it's pretty good, right? I think that there's certain spots that you could still upgrade at. I have issues with the play calling. I have issues with some things, but for the most part, like this is a team where I look at them. And maybe this is me looking through, the orange and blue glasses, orange and blue aviators here, but I look at this team and I say, with good coaching, this is a playoff team in 2025. Assuming your key players stay healthy. With good coaching, this is a playoff team. And if you don't make the playoffs, it's because you didn't have good coaching. That's where I stand on it. That's just how I feel about this roster right now, honestly. And that was, by the way, one of my issues with this team for a lot of this season was that I thought coaching is what cost you most of the games earlier in the year. And so, like, imagine if you had average coaching, and that's the thing I said before the season, average coaching gets you 8 wins this year. I said, this roster, average coaching gets you 8 wins. So that's where I stand on it. So average coaching, I think you're in the playoff next year. All the cap will do is cause inflation. You add money to a system, prices go up, simple economics. Billy cannot cut the check. LSU alums cut the check to get Solomon. Rankings aren't that serious. Be near the top, but it's more important to hit on the recruits you do get. So yes, but I also think that I am a person that says, hey, you develop guys, they'll outplay their rankings. You scheme things up, they'll outplay their rankings. You evaluate better than the people. Like, you get paid millions of dollars. Billy, Rob Sale, Austin Armstrong, I believe Ron Roberts as well. Like, you guys are all 7-figure coaches. I trust your opinion evaluating more than I trust a guy getting paid, I don't know how much, to do it for 24/7 or On3 or Rivals or ESPN. Like, I trust your guys' opinion more. That's why I say, hey, look at the offer sheet for a lot of these kids, right? You look at a kid like Jahari Medlock, very low-ranked kid. You look at his offers, Florida, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Maryland. Like, Maryland you could scratch, but Georgia Tech wants you as an O-lineman. Georgia wants you as an O-lineman. I think you're worth a swing. So things like that. But also, there's that. I think that's also a reason that we see, like, his ranking went up once he committed to Georgia. It's like, yeah, because the recruiting sites know that Georgia recruits better or Georgia evaluates better than they do. So they're like, oh, if Georgia thinks you're good enough to take on your roster and compete in the SEC, then I should think that you're good enough to do that. And that's why recruiting sites do that. They do when Ohio State wants a receiver, things like that. So I think, yeah, recruiting or rankings don't mean everything, but I do think that there's definitely correlation between, in a macro sense, between rankings and success. Individually, sure, you could say, hey, that kid should be higher, that kid should be lower, sure, but in the macro, rankings are rankings for a reason. And I'm not someone that lives and dies by them, but I think you should be higher than 11th. And let's say that we took Georgia's top recruiter when we got the job. Brandon's the only criticizing in terms of channels. I don't know what that means. Criticizing? Sorry, I don't know what you mean, but I appreciate you being here. Billy got guys we need in the trenches and backfield. He did a great job, as those guys are the protectors and defenders every team needs. A+ class. I disagree. I do not think that this offensive line class is strong enough. So I will disagree on that. I don't hate the class. I think they did a very good job on the defensive trenches, but offensive trenches, I don't think that they've done a good job in terms of. I think that the players that they bring in have pretty consistently been quality, not quantity. I don't think they brought in enough good players. Mudkip. Damn, Brandon, you've been long for a minute. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that means we've been live for 57 minutes, which thank you very much. We had an ad break at 16 minutes, and now it's just been 40 minutes without one. We're wrapping up soon. We'll wrap up soon. I told you we were going to be longer than an hour. So I don't think that they've done an awesome job with recruiting, specifically on the offensive line. My issue, again, has been I don't think they bring in enough quality guys there. They bring in quality, just not enough quality. And I think that's my issue on the offensive line. You can't bring in 3 guys every class. You can't do it. You need to bring in 4, 5. Because think about it. If you bring in 3 guys every class, that means over the course of 4 years, you're bringing in 12 offensive linemen. That's not even enough to say, even if you hit on all of them, they are not all going to be there for the 4 years. You are not going to be able to consistently supplement that in the portal. You need to bring in more quality offensive linemen, and there are more quality offensive linemen. I get it. They have their requirements, right? They want athletes with long arms that are tall and heavy. Again, light feet, quick feet. They want all those things, and they want an aggressive mentality. I get it. They tighten up their pool a lot. Okay, they limit their pool on the offensive line because they want all these things, and they're not going to budge on those. And I respect having guardrails. I do. I think that having guardrails is great because you go, if that's a really good outlier, if that's a really good offensive lineman, but he's a little bit shorter, or a really good offensive lineman, but a little bit shorter arms, or a really good offensive lineman, but he's not as athletic, but he's really technically sound, and you want to swing on that, go ahead. For the most part, I respect having guardrails. And yes, they limit their pool, but you've got to be a better job at then converting on those. If you have a player in we'll say basketball, where it's like, oh yeah, he doesn't shoot threes frequently, but when he does, he nails them. That matters. Like, that matters. If it's something that you don't do frequently, but you nail them, like, that's fine. But Florida's doing a thing where they're not going for a ton of offensive linemen, and that's fine, but you're not converting enough on those opportunities, and you've got to bring more in. And so that's where I feel in the offensive line. I like the offensive lineman that they brought in. You need to bring in more. You need to. And so that's where I stand, at least on that, on the offensive line front. Give Jaluk some of the money you didn't give to Thomas. Doesn't develop, so that thinking is, I'm assuming you're talking about the offensive line. I'm assuming. LSU had money for Solomon because they got outbid for the number 1 QB. They lost to Michigan. UF better to overpay for transfer receivers and O-line that can help more in 2025. I don't disagree. What's up, Mudkip? Q said, hell no, they need to tighten up on the O-line. I'm gonna throw that one right up there. Hell no, they need to tighten up on the O-line. You need to tighten up on the O-line. You need more quality. I get it. You bring in quality. You need to bring in more quality. I'm not saying bring in 7 offensive linemen. 4 or 5 every year. 4 or 5 every single year. Okay? So that's very important. We have like 16 O-line as of right now, right? Something like that. Perform on the field next year and the 5 stars will come. Hopefully. In theory, that should work. Yes, absolutely. I agree. If they get some proven O-line and OT from the portal along with another good receiver, I'll be satisfied. The defense players we're getting are going to be solid, so little worry. I think that they're still going to go. I think they want to get a starter quality DB in the portal. I think depending on what happens with like Caleb Banks, they might want to go bring in a starter quality D tackle in the portal, specifically at the 3-tech spot, like the pass rusher. But for the most part, I think defense, they're pretty good. They just want to bring in some veterans here and there, help them along. Got to lock in a good portal O-line. I respect Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, but would like to swing higher. UF senior right tackle transfer we got in 24 was critical in our late season victories. Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, yes. So same guy. But here's the thing. That was a good ad. He had a really rough start to the season. And I don't think it's new O-line coach is inbound. Maybe. I don't think that it's a thing you should rely on to go, hey, every year we need to go bring in a starter quality offensive tackle from the portal. Because that's another thing too. Florida's specifically been bad at bringing in offensive tackles. And so you need to hit on your offensive tackles in the portal. But here's the thing. So far, Florida's brought in a few offensive tackles in the portal, and the only one that's actually hit is Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Not exactly a great barometer, right? And so that's where I kind of stand on that. We've been live for an hour and 2 minutes. We're going to wrap up here. I love every single one of you so much. And the fact that I've been rambling for an hour and 2 minutes and that we've got 224 people in here is incredible. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget, we're going live tonight after the basketball game to talk about the basketball game. And yeah, thank you all so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. I'm on Blue Sky as well with Brandon Olsen. You can go to TikTok, YouTube, if you're on YouTube, Instagram, you go to Locked On Gators, and we're on there as well. Trying to be better about posting to those. Trying to be better. Is it a reality to find quality starter O-line in the portal? Yes, it is. I think that O-line might be shifting toward a portal position. But thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And it will never get old on me that I get to talk about our Florida Gators for a living. That's incredible. It's effing awesome. And yeah, I will see you all later tonight, hopefully. If not, I'll see you all next time.